This is a Father's Day present for all you folks. I am excited to be a fatherly guy. I wasn't a fatherly guy for a large portion of my life, but I sure am now. I've taken 28 years to train up in being fatherly. My serious decision in April 1994 was I want to turn into the kind of good man and the kind of father that I desperately needed when I was a child in South Jersey in the 50s and 60s. A fatherly message to all of you. Number one, you and I have not been able to enjoy true ecclesia. Now, ecclesia is just a group of friends that are called out of the ordinary behavior of the world into a special friendship with one another, operating on a set of honest and truthful guidelines. Now, I have been brought to a very special, quiet, comfortable place. I did not plan this. I stopped here and I was invited to stay. So I'm staying for a Father's Day week in a very quiet place with a guest room that was set aside for me to use. This is my Father's Day message to you. You and I have not had true ecclesia. A group of friends from diverse backgrounds who are called out of the ordinary behavior of the world into a special agreed upon set of simple, honest lifestyle and practice and mindset. Lifestyle, practice, mindset, habits, positive guidelines. And that true ecclesia meets together as often as possible to actually return to a point of honesty, because we end up doing things that, I know I should have done that one thing and I didn't do it, and some trouble happened because I didn't take care of a responsibility. So true ecclesia is actually a meeting together to cleanse conscience and to declare our kind of loving friendship and reunion with one another. It's not that complicated. It's a simple childlike thing. But the concept of ecclesia, oh, by the way, the word ecclesia is a Greek word that is very poorly translated into the word church. That just opens up a can of worms. Because what your peer group definition of church is, and what your society and community definition of church is probably what you are going to accept and believe. My friend David Berceau mentioned that he had been raised on store-bought tomatoes that came in little cellophane containers and were kind of like reddish clear color and kind of crunchy. And he had never had a fresh, ripe, vine-ripened, huge tomato with a deep, dark red inside and a soft texture. He had never had a real tomato in most of his young adult life. And he was amazed at how content he was at the store-bought tomatoes that he had enjoyed in his youth, because that's what he knew. So when someone in your peer group or your family or your church group or your society uses the term church, you have a concept of what that is. But if I say to you, you do not have true ecclesia, a true group of friends that are called out from the world into a loving, cheerful, open-hearted, deeply open friendship based on constant, true honesty about all the things in human life, including the pleasures that can get dangerous, like drinking, and the pleasures of intimacy, and even whatever, the pleasures of riding your four-wheeler way off into the distance and potentially driving into other people's territories, which is forbidden. There are so many pleasures in the human life that can turn into dangerous stuff. I know a father of many children, and at the table he made a marvelous declaration: the drinking of alcohol can become very dangerous. And I'm like, good word, that's a good declaration. I know that to be true. As a matter of fact, I know a daddy who has 2 twin children, a boy and a girl, fraternal twins. And he had recently been very stuck in the consumption of alcohol and had went into a detox program. I assume that they put him on medications, some of which have suicidality warnings. He came home and he personally ended his life. So his 2 little kids don't have a daddy anymore. And that was linked to the danger of utilizing alcohol. There are many pleasures of human life that can end up getting dangerous, because we sometimes have problems with self-control and habits and stuff like that. So, my Father's Day declaration to you is this: I and you most probably and absolutely have not had true ecclesia like 2 or 3 times a week in our physical neighborhood, where a group of very kind and honest men lead the entire little group of friends in a private, closed meeting. They lead the whole group of men and women and children by admitting the things that they feel God has spoken to them since they last met, in dreams and in little truths that are sometimes just even overheard in conversation. But most importantly, a time of conscience cleansing. high since our last truth meal, since our last truth gathering, since our last ecclesia gathering of friends. I did these two things that I regret. I yelled at my sister on the telephone, and I made a choice about my finances that was actually cheating. And I want to just declare that and renounce it, because I want my conscience to be clean and clear and fresh and at peace to greet every single human being. So this conscience cleansing of a group of men, brothers, friends, who also say to each other, hey, you guys, how could you have done better helping out with your wife and your family this week? How do you want to admit to neglect or bad behavior regarding your responsibilities as a father, a husband, and a daddy? So as the women and children hear these cheerful admissions, come on guys, come on, come on, come on. How could you have done better? What did you do that was stupid? When the women and children hear these men who are actually designed to be gutsy and real and courageous, instead of going forward to like fight somebody, you go forward to show yourself courageous, like, okay, I want to tell on myself. I want to accuse myself so that on the final day, the evil accuser can't say, oh, that guy did bad things and he hid them. And nobody knew that he was hiding bad stuff in his heart. And that's why he became so nervous and violent or so addicted. What was he hiding? When the women hear the men and the brotherhood sharing this conscience cleansing attitude, they become relieved, because they think to themselves, I don't have to nag my husband. These brother guys are so on one another's case, I wouldn't even given my husband a hard time about that. So what? Who cares? But somehow, these men want to have a noble, clean heart before one another. Now, how cool is that? In conclusion, my fatherly gift is, since you've never had true ecclesia, what are you going to do to actually make true ecclesia happen? A true friend group in your neighborhood that actually sets aside other stuff and sacrifices time. We can be busy completing projects and chasing amusements and chasing pleasurable things and chasing entertainment. We can be busy with so many things, even with teaching beautiful scriptures and practicing music and et cetera, et cetera. But are we sacrificing the time to make sure to look around the room at every face and say, is there anything troubling? Is there anything that's sad? And I want to remind you of one thing. Rewind all the way back to when Jesus of Nazareth was a little boy. In his family atmosphere, guess what? The men had two very peculiar habits that they were dedicated and devoted to. And women and children and families, this might potentially blow your mind. So hold on to your seat. The male human beings understood that the most important thing of every day is stopping in the morning when everybody's up and active to speak words. Yes, to get together, stop all other conversation and activities to speak words of blessing, peace, healing, refreshment, and success over the entire human family. That's called the morning prayer. A time of blessing the whole world. In cheerful kid terms, we like to call that, fix the world, fix the world. We need to stop and fix the world. Okay, right now, hello, God of the universe. We are speaking peace and healing and joyfulness and giggles and success over the entire human family. Everyone between conception in the womb of the mommy and death back into the dirt. Every single person alive right now, our house is speaking loving kindness and joy and peace and no more confusion and healing and resurrection and happiness and success in every way over the whole human family. Now, when we do that in the morning, the families of Jesus' age, the men were dedicated to having 10 men stand together to make those words of blessing over everyone alive in the world every single day of the week. Always. 10 men standing together to do a morning prayer of blessing over the whole human family in some way. And the funny rabbi says, now there's always women and children ready for prayer, but to get 10 guys standing in one place, you need to actually settle with 20 guys within walking distance of one another's houses, because God knows morning emergencies and everybody can't always be ready at the same time in the morning. So the Jews had to settle so closely that there were literally 20 guys countable who had come of reproductive age, a man who can, a young man, but a man nonetheless, who can stand in the midst of the morning prayer. So the two peculiar things that the male human beings of the age of Jesus's mommy and daddy, what they call the Second Temple era, or around the 1st century in the Roman calendar, the two things was, one, 10 men together for every single day, every morning prayer. Number two, anytime the man has a flow of seed, he just lets the friend group or the family know. Now, these people of Jesus' age were totally separate from all of the Gentile tribes, because the Gentile tribes were under totally different spirits. They were under Aphrodite spirit powers. They were under Zeus spirit powers. They were under all these different types of spirit powers. They were under Asherah and Baal and Molech. All of these spirit powers or what the human beings were respecting. But the ones that were under this Yahweh God of Israel power were totally separate. And the simple instruction is, when any of your men have a flow of seed, they just let the family know, hey, send me good energy for the next 24 hours. I'm untouchable until the next sundown. And it's just, it's a natural, ordinary function of life. And the same with the women. They're untouchable for 14 days. And untouchable does not mean evil. It means heads up. Something special's going on. Something's happening here. God's doing something. It's a special event of nature. Now, there are problematic factors and contributing factors to all these things, but that's the basic rule. Women and children, your men, if you were part of the family of Jesus' era, your men would stand 10 of them together every morning to speak a nice, loving blessing over everybody alive. And anytime they had a flow of seed, they would just let the family know. And they would have just like a little quiet time, a little separate time for themselves, where they weren't doing quite as much, and they were set apart a little bit, meditating on things. This is not just a quarantine law to prevent sexually transmitted diseases or something like that. This is an emotional truth thing that helps the family be unified and caring. We are speaking extra blessings over a female human being in her cycle for 14 days straight. Even if the flow is only 5 days, for 7 days. And then when the 7 days are over, give the woman another 7 days of peace, where she doesn't have extra burdens and stresses. The whole family respects 14 days of blessing over the women in a regular cycle through the months. And then anytime the men have a random moment where they have a flow of seed, they are blessed by the family for the next 24 hours or until the next sundown. These two things of 10 men for morning prayer and honesty about the flow of seed would have changed my life. If that stuff was in place in my family, things would have been mighty different. I've noticed that Muslim families, rather than just going to a mosque, the mommies and daddies teach the children how to get on their knees and be in the times of prayer. And those times of prayer are based on the tabernacle and the temple and early Christianity. Muhammad came 600 years after Jesus of Nazareth. And the little Muslim families, their children strictly know how to get on their knees and how to speak the detailed prayers of blessing. Now, all the words of those prayers and all the details of the Muslim directive and faith, I throw questions up. But the habit and the practice of gathering together as a fun family, enjoying and declaring that the one God, the God of Abraham, who brought forth both Ishmael and also baby Chuckles, Yaakov, Yitzhak, baby Chuckles, Yitzhak, Isaac, and Yaakov. So, think about these things. And how can we form true ecclesia? I have a plan. It's called Family Honesty Church. And any big box church can gather in it. This is a blessing for all the structured pastors, the congregational overseers, teaching them how to send people home and have honesty and communion times in their homes, and use the big box church gathering place as a marvelous place of community and training and teaching and, community events and fellowship and all kinds of other stuff, but making sure that every soul is gathering together in the private closed meeting, having fun, cleansing their consciences together, and taking the truth meal, which is the reunity with Yeshua and the reunity with your personal neighborhood friend group. Not online, not far away, but within walking distance. Ain't that awesome? Happy Father's Day.